Alright, so I played a game recently called An Imp and an Impostor. It's a strange little game which has drawn me in right away, yet, as often seems to be the case with a lot of these, had a hard time keeping the momentum going. Overall it's interesting and I'm planning to play again, but this one playthrough felt entirely insufficient, too short. Still, I enjoyed it quite a bit. What is it about? An imp, a creature of danger. They are drawn to it, they abide by it, and truth be told, world would have less of it with fewer of them around. But variety is the spice of life, and when one such imp gets in a little too deep, they are tossed into the horrible shape nobody would want to be in if they can help it, the human one. Now, forced to make amends by working for the oppressive agency, the imp is doing his best to regain what he has lost, all the while juggling the responsibilities from the agency and trying to keep up the appearances of an imposter. What did I enjoy? The ideas. The whole thing is chock full of interesting ideas. The magic is generally done through a glyph system, but there is a whole slew of other things. Also, some inanimate object might have personalities. Imps themselves are more than a typical depiction in a lot of media. They are total shapeshifter, they can turn into anything, freely jump between planes of existence, and more. This is a fun and vibrant world, and I've even copied a few quotes describing the quirks of it, just because I want to remember them. Aside from that, I suppose I've enjoyed the writing of the characters, but it boils down more so to the fact that I couldn't bring myself to dislike any of them. The author has a way of making everyone charming. It just so happens that I can recall many a time when I've played through something or watched something or read when I've experienced a story, and there were just always a bunch of characters whom I could not tolerate. A great example that instantly comes to mind is me watching Rookie recently, a TV show starring Nathan Fillion, and there is a character on that team whom I just loathed so deeply that I could not even look at him. This was probably the most egregious example of it, but the point I'm making here is that this is a story that I praise, but this is a part of a story that I praise, but it's not a very strong part. It's simply that I'm happy that I didn't hate anybody for once. And aside from that, I suppose the pacing can get a shout out, as I've tried a few games recently from Choice of Games and bounced from all of them. Unable to keep going as the writing was so insanely verbose, or details about entirely irrelevant things, that I simply couldn't be bothered. Like a paragraph describing some random lamp, or a random info dump about the world which won't affect the plot or set up anything interesting. I swear, some of these games are a linguist flexing their knowledge. Imp is quick, a little quirky, and clearly likable. So, what did I dislike? The problem with this lovable world is the fact that I had to part with it. The entire game feels like a chapter 1 of possibly 3 or maybe even 5. I want to see what this imp's life was before, what happened after regaining the magic, and whatever happened to Mercy. I also wished that there were more slice-of-life kind of scenes, like letting me hang out with my co-partner Alia. Maybe getting more hints toward her family all the while. Or maybe even spend time with anyone else in the agency. Past the halfway point I simply couldn't see Lara anymore. And that was a real travesty, as she was wonderful to interact with. And I hate to say this, but the ending was a real letdown as well. Again, it went into, and then I planned the last big heist. At which point it just ends. It's not a travesty or anything, I did get answers to most things. Not completely satisfying ones, but it's all acceptable. Problem is that, again, it simply wasn't enough. Among other things, there's writing from the mystery setup standpoint. Certain things occur in the plot which are questions, and the player is meant to not know answers. Yet. However, my problem is that the reveal happens very shortly after. Great example is the Academy. A certain person does some illegal experiments, and I randomly stumbled into the result of these experiments, only to go into the Academy that same day later and catch the perpetrator in the act. That needed time, set up the mystery, drop a few hints, have something else occur, proceed with the plot, then finally drop the reveal. And instead it was too fast. I didn't even have time to guess who it could have been, just didn't even consider it being solved so fast. And I suppose this is a bit of a cop-out, but I would like to complain about the writing for the less important characters, which is to say there is simply none of it. The idea behind these games is often that it's a one-off, no sequels, no prequels, nothing like that. There are some variety for choices, and these choices quickly add up, which means that writing a game like this is extremely difficult, having to account for so very much. So if an author puts a lot of effort into writing, let's say 5 side characters, and the player picks choices which never meet any of those side characters, it was a gigantic waste of time. But, well, the point remains valid in my opinion. I would like to have more faces, more names, more of the world. I've made a little note file for all the people I've encountered and a few sequences in case they do something important. Just in case I forget something. A total of 12 names. 12 for the entire game. That's not a lot, considering the player visits 2 cities, can travel between planes of existence, and I personally also picked a choice where I bring back a whole lot of people something they have lost. And it was only 12 people for the entire game, with honestly even half of those just being one-off characters. That is not much. In any case, this was a fun distraction and a reminder what Choice of Games is still chugging along, offering new games all the time. By the way, this is a bit of a side thing, but I just have to mention this. Tried Dragon and the Djinn, and it's by the same author, and that one did not work anywhere near as well. I couldn't get into it at all. Felt far too wordy, with far too focused on non-English words, which I then instantly followed by an explanation of what they could actually mean. Imp has the same thing happen, but a lot of it is understandable through context, so it didn't hamper the enjoyment. Linguistics is a bit of a long topic to bring up in an afterthought, so I'll just say what, to me, this kind of replacement of commonly used words is definitely a negative.